Ladies and gentlemen, Daniel Weingarten!
Thank you. Oh, this is great. Thank you. All right. Oh, thank y'all so much for coming out tonight. So, here's the deal. Ever since I was a kid, I've been obsessed with the idea of love, specifically romantic love. So because of that, I was like a 12-year-old walking puka shell necklace. Like I just wrote poems and I crushed rom-coms, and that was it. You know, sir, do you like rom-coms?
Sure.
I was talking to him, but I'm glad that you do too. Yeah, you really do, because you were like, yes, and then he was like, sure, yeah, which felt more like a polite no, but I appreciate it. It was very much like, no, I'm not a bitch, but you, proceed. I loved it. What's your name, sir?
Adam.
Adam. Okay, feels like you made that up, but I appreciate it. Thank you. Listen, Adam, I loved rom-coms. Just any movie with a number in the title and it's about love, I'm in, right? 27 Dresses, 50 First Dates, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, 10 Things I Hate About You, 8 Mile, amazing, love it. Like, if you took all the DVDs from my childhood bedroom and you just lined them up next to each other, it looked like a math equation where the answer was Matthew McConaughey. You know what I'm saying? All right. Yeah, I think the reason I always loved rom-coms is they were stories about love overcoming all odds. And granted, some of those odds should not be overcome. Like, anybody who's seen Love Actually, at least at one point, has been like, actually, no. But for the most part, there were stories about the power of love, and because of that, I became what a lot of people would refer to as a hopeless romantic, which I really resented because I always felt very hopeful. Granted, that hope might have been misguided, but it was present. It really all started with my parents. See, my parents, they were the first love story that I ever heard. They met on a blind date. They got engaged on the second date. They got married 6 months later, happily married now for over 35 years, right? Yeah. Beautiful story of love. True story, my mom needed a green card and it worked out. But, you know, love is love. I do think the fact that my dad's from Mexico and my mom's from Argentina has something to do with it. I am Latino, and sometimes people get thrown off when I say that I'm Latino, especially when I pronounce it Latino. They're just like, duh, somebody studied abroad. But like, I do think Latinos have a different relationship to love than people in the United States, right? Like in the United States, I think we're very fickle with love. People don't want to say I love you too soon for fear of how the other person is going to respond. But Latinos fall in love hard and fast. Like, Latinos make lesbians look slow. Silly. But it is kind of baked into the language when you think about it. Like, in English, there's only one way to say I love you. But in Spanish, there's two, te quiero and te amo. Right, te amo is that deep love for your husband, your wife, your partner. Right, te quiero, that's for like your dad that cheated on your mom 5 years ago. Right? It's like, I forgive you and I love you, but I still fucking hate you. Te quiero. Yeah, Latinos, they got a lot of love to give. That's actually why so many of them have secret families. And, yeah, la casa grande y la casa chica, ya sabes. But yeah, I thought because of my parents' story, because of these rom-coms, I thought that's how love worked. You know, I thought you meet someone, you fall in love with them immediately, and you spend the rest of your life happily ever after. So because of that, I was like 12 years old, telling a lot of girls that I loved them, just handing I love yous out like Costco samples, no membership card required. And then I looked to rom-coms for like the things to do to get someone to fall in love with you. So I thought big romantic gestures were the way. You know, I thought love was this big feeling, and you had to do big things in order to get it. So because of that, I was trying to pull off like Matthew McConaughey moves, which is a problem because I'm not and never have been Matthew McConaughey. All right, back then I was a 13-year-old kid with frosted tips because I wanted to look like Justin Timberlake, but I just ended up looking like Guy Fieri. So, like, I was trying to get to Destination Love, but I had one destination, and it was Flavor Town, and that was it. So yeah, I did a lot of cringy things as a kid. I remember right out the gate, the first phone number I ever got, this girl named Alex. I met her at Molly's bat mitzvah. I saw her across the dance floor. Get Low was playing, right? The anthem of love. To the window, to the wall, to the wall. The sweat was for sure dripping down my balls. It was a hot Marriott, I think. The AC was broken. That was a crazy time. I was 13 in 2005, and that was an insane time because we were grinding at 13. That's wild. That's not right. That's not... Like, a 13-year-old boy will get hard for no reason. And for some reason, as a society, we were like, let's give him a reason. Let's... Like, I one time went to a party, there was a grind train, just like a human centipede of 13-year-old boys and girls grinding while singing along to Lil Jon and the East Side Boys Get Low. Just, oh, skeet, skeet, motherfucker. Singing about jizzing while grinding. That's what skeeting is. It's jizzing. The adults clearly were not aware, and I gotta be honest, I was not either, all right? I thought, I'm gonna be vulnerable. I thought skeeting meant scatting. I was like, wow, Lil Jon is doing an ode to Louis Armstrong. Little did I know he was doing an ode to coming. What a wonderful world. Dancing cheek to cheek. So anyway, Adam, I got Alex's phone number that night, and I was very excited. I don't know if you remember getting your first phone number, but I felt like I was on top of the world. And I was like, I got to do whatever it takes to not fall off. So I planned for this phone call for like 3 days, and I gamed it all out. I was like, okay, well, if she says this, I'm gonna say this. If she says this, I'm gonna say this. And if it goes to voicemail, I'm gonna do this. And day of the call comes, I feel ready, confident. I dial, ring, ring, ring. And then she answers, hello? And I panic immediately. Okay, I say something dumb. I'm just like, hi, no, yeah, this is Daniel. I don't know if you remember me, but if not, like, that's okay. Like, I don't remember myself sometimes. Fuck. But then she goes, ha, that's so funny. And you just heard that, and most of y'all didn't really laugh. There's nothing funny about that, okay? And I'm sitting on the phone confused. I'm like, I don't know what was so funny about that, but I know that funny is good, so I'm trying to think of another funny thing to say, and as I'm trying to think of another funny thing to say, she goes, this is actually my voicemail. Leave a message after the tone. Yeah, remember those voicemails, those prank voicemails? Yeah, fuck those voicemails, okay? So there I was sitting there, my little 13-year-old heart just beating 1,000,000 miles a minute, just 160 BPMs of pure fear, hope, adrenaline, despair. And then I realize, hold on a second, it's about to go to the voicemail. I gotta pivot to the voicemail strategy. And my grand strategy for this voicemail was that I was gonna channel Heath Ledger in 10 Things I Hate About You. Yeah, those that know, those that don't, there's a scene where Heath Ledger is going down this soccer stadium, surrounded by a marching band, serenading Julia Stiles in front of the whole school. And he's like, I can't take my eyes off of you. And it's lovely, and it's charming, and it's romantic. And I think to myself, that's what I should do to this girl that I met one time on her voicemail, a cappella. Now, I do want to give 13-year-old me some credit. I knew that I wasn't a good singer. I had that self-awareness. But this is the 2000s. I was like, fuck it, I'll do that pop-punk type thing, right? Where you're like singing, but you're kind of talking singing. But the problem with that was that when that beep went off, I just sounded like I was camped outside her window. Because that beep went off, and I was just like, I can't take my eyes off of you. Feels like heaven to touch. I want to hold you so much. I love you, baby. For 2 minutes and 45 seconds. The worst part was when I was done, I hung up and I was like, I fucking killed that shit. This is the beginning of the rest of my life. Yeah, so she filed a restraining order and the cops were like, you're 13. She's like, yeah, but listen to this. And then when I was 16 though, I fell in love for the first time, had my first girlfriend. That was amazing, you know. I don't know if love at 16 is real love, you know, because you're not dealing with things like bills or the scars of past relationships or childhood traumas that pop up in situations for no reason and make your partner go, what the fuck is going on right now? You know what I'm talking about. But it's definitely potent, you know? They say that love is blind, but I think love also blinds you from things like reason and logic. Because I was 16 and it was 2008 and this was the beginnings of Facebook and I was posting poems on her wall like it was a private text chat. I think I just heard someone go, Jesus. Okay, yeah. And listen, today Facebook is just a lawless Autobahn highway for fascists to sow chaos, but in 08, chaos was being sown, only was by 16-year-olds like me writing poems rich with metaphor about the ocean and Jason Mraz's fedora. So yeah, that lasted about 6 weeks, and I remember she broke up with me, and I remember when she was breaking up with me, I was trying to save the relationship. I was like, just tell me what I got to do. I'll do anything. I'm malleable. I'm Play-Doh. Like, I was simping before simping was really a thing. Like, back then, they just called me a bitch, but I just cared. And I'll never forget, she looked at me and she's like, no, Daniel, it's just that for some reason, like the sound of your voice, I don't know why, but it just like infuriates me. Yeah, brutal. But I looked at her, hopeful, and I was just like, how about now? So yeah, rough start. Now fast forward about 8 years, 24 years old, doing stand-up at this point in my life, and I do a show one night. And after the show, I'm talking to two people from the audience, this guy named Garrett and this woman named Natalie, and they're telling me about this podcast that they do called the Drunk Dial Hotline. And the premise of the podcast is drunk people call in, they leave voicemails asking for advice, and they then give those people advice on the podcast. At the end of the night, Garrett gives me a little business card. And on the front of the card, it says drunk ? And on the back, it says, don't call your ex, call us. And he hands me the card with a big cheesy grin. And he's like, hey man, if you're ever drunk and sad, give us a call. And I know that he said it with a cheery disposition, but I couldn't help but feel slightly insulted because what he's really saying is, you look like a guy who's gonna be drunk and sad real soon. And then a few weeks later, I was in Phoenix, Arizona, and I was drunk and sad because I was in Phoenix, Arizona. And I remember I was paying for my meal. I open up my wallet, and I'm a little drunk, and I see the card, and I think to myself, what the hell? I'm gonna leave a voicemail because that went so well the last time that I did that. And I do. I don't sing. I don't think anything of it. I go on with my life. A few weeks later, I'm talking to a buddy of mine. His name's Connor, and he's like, hey man, there's this woman that works at the restaurant that I work at. Her name is Zoe. I think you two would really hit it off. You should add her on Facebook. And so I do. The next day, Zoe accepts my friend request. I'm feeling a little embarrassed. I send her a message. I'm like, hey, this is kind of embarrassing, but Connor told me to add you on Facebook. And she goes, no, that's not embarrassing. This is. And she sends me a link to an episode of the Drunk Dial Hotline. Yeah, so it turned out that Garrett and Natalie were her roommates, and they did this podcast together. But here's where things get a little bit crazy, okay? That night, Garrett and Natalie go back home, and Natalie's like, Zoe, we met this comedian. He's perfect for you, okay? He's funny, he's Jewish, he seems nice, and apparently the bar was low because Zoe was interested. But Zoe's like, that's crazy. You don't know who this guy is. A few weeks later, they're doing the podcast. My voicemail comes on. Not knowing it's me, Zoe's like, oh my God, caller number 5, so funny, so charming. We should go out to dinner sometime. After the podcast, Natalie's like, Zoe, that guy, that caller, that was the comedian. That was that Daniel that I told you would be your next boyfriend. And Zoe's like, okay, well, still, that's weird, but okay. A week later, they're at their restaurant job. They're on a shift break. They're talking about me. Turned out that Zoe had been cyberstalking me. No big deal. And she was still interested. But their coworker overhears this conversation. Who's their coworker? My buddy Connor. That's why he told me to add her on Facebook. Didn't tell me any of this. We found this out later. And 9 years later, we're married. Now, when I tell people that story, some of the time they'll be like, wow, that sounds like a romantic comedy. And I'm like, yeah, but in order for it to be a romantic comedy, odds need to be overcome. They're like, yeah, but what are the odds of all of those things happening? I'm like, sure, but also something really embarrassing needs to happen along the way. And then I play them the voicemail.
Hi, I got this number from a friend. Drunk ? I was gonna call my ex, but then I was like, I don't think that's a good idea because I might say something that I regret. So I'm here. I'm not in my hometown. I almost got beat up tonight by this guy who wore an Affliction t-shirt and did all this steroids. And now I'm gonna eat a jerk chicken sandwich with a side salad because I like salad. But yeah, I called my ex-girlfriend because I was like, I feel lonely, you know? But instead, I called you guys, and now I'm just talking to just nothingness. And I know how that feels. I might as well just talk to a wall, you know? I'm looking right now. There's a broken cello on the wall this bar. I feel like that's a metaphor for my life. It's like there could be so much beauty in it, but right now, it's just not capable of it. I should just be therapy, but I'm insurance, so it's too expensive. I just want to do Kobe, you know? I just want to, like, not be alone. Loneliness is a bitch, man. It's like, yo, why can't I just find somebody? And that's it. Be done. But it's just like, anyway, I'm gonna go drink more because this water is not making me feel better. And I need to numb the pain. Honesty! Anyway, this is fun. Bye.
Now, Adam, I don't know what's sadder, me on that voicemail, or the fact that Zoe heard that voicemail and her immediate reaction was, who is this charming gentleman? A broken cello? Sign me up, I love a project. But I'm glad that she felt that way. 2 weeks later, we went out on our first date, and I remember I was very nervous on the first date. At the time, I was living with my parents. She had her own apartment. I was embarrassed about that, and I didn't want to tell her like what part of LA I lived in, because I thought if I said Pasadena, she'd be like, you live with your parents. So every time she asked me where I lived, I was just like, oh, I live east of here. And she's like, yeah, but like where? I'm like, oh, east of here. She's like, yeah, but like what's the name of the place that you live at? I'm like, oh, it's a place with the name that's east of here. Like I just sounded like Lewis and Clark with doubts. And then 2 days later, we went out on our second date, and that was the night that I fell in love with her. Some things never change. We went to go see a movie that night, and she had asked me to pick out the movie, so I go online, and I see there's this new movie starring Molly Shannon from Saturday Night Live. And I was like, oh, great, comedy. But I didn't look to see what this movie was about, didn't watch a trailer, and like 15 minutes into the movie, I was like, oh, I should have looked to see what this movie was about. Because the movie was about a young man's relationship with his mom, played by Molly Shannon, who's dying of terminal cancer. Yeah, not like a great second date vibe, you know? That'd be like if you came here tonight expecting a comedy show and I just tried to sell you all timeshares in Cabo. It'd be a bummer. And the whole time during this movie, I'm trying my best not to cry. Because something you need to know about me is that I fucking love to cry. It's like a top 10 activity. Like, I'll be having a good day and put a sad song on just to make it better, all right? Like, I'll get a promotion and put on some Adele and have a ball having a ball whilst rolling in the deep of my soul. But here's the thing, I'm not a pretty crier. I'm not like a single teardrop crier. No, I am snot from nostril to nipple, okay? It is aggressive. And I don't want to cry because I don't want to put her into a state of concern with my tears, because I've put people into a state of concern with my tears before, all right? One time I watched Coco on an airplane. That shouldn't be allowed. That should be illegal. They should fucking ban that movie 30,000 feet and above. I was crying so hard, the flight attendant came over to check in on me. She was like, are you okay? And I was just like, she's like, can I get you anything? I was like, remember me! Oh, a Biscoff and a ginger ale, thank you. And I'm doing good for most of the movie. Not crying, holding it in. But then, Molly Shannon's character dies, and Drops of Jupiter by Train starts playing. Game over. The second I heard those chords, bum, 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 those tears started going down my Jupiter face like a bullet train. And it was a lot. Like, I think the guy next to me was like, fuck, is that a medical emergency? You okay? And I remember as I was sitting there and I was crying, I remember feeling this shame and this embarrassment that I feel like I've been conditioned to feel. But then I look over and I see that Zoe's crying. And as I come to find, Zoe loves to cry. Like, she's so fucking good at it. Like, top 10 in the world. Like, she's just an incredibly empathetic person, which is what I love so much about her. Like, she feels people's feelings. She cries when people are happy. She cries when people are sad. One time I walked in on her crying because a woman from Ohio won a Kia Forte on The Price is Right. Like, that's... I was like, yeah, applause break. Applause for Zoe. I came in, I'm like, are you okay? And she's like, I'm just so happy for Carol. She don't know Carol, but she's happy for Carol, and she should be. Kia Forte, great car. Hashtag not a sponsor set. They just gave me a good deal 4 years ago, and I keep spreading the good word. So there we were, now both crying. And then this beautiful thing happened where she saw me crying, and she just grabbed my hand, and then the two of us just sat there crying together. And all of a sudden, that shame and that discomfort that I felt just transformed into comfort and vulnerability. And I was like, oh my God, I love this woman. And 6 weeks later, I told her that I loved her. Not te quiero, I loved her. I told her te amo, I loved her. And she told me that she te amo, I loved me too. And that day, everything changed because love does that, right? Like when you first fall in love, it changes your brain chemistry, changes the way you walk through the world, the way you see the world. Like when you first fall in love and you see that first sunset, you're just like, fuck, that is transcendent. When you're not in love and you see a sunset, you might be like, all right, guess it's time to drink. So there we were, in the belly of love, doing all the cute shit you do when you first fall in love. Like we gave each other nicknames. Ours were accidental. I was a little tipsy one night, and I meant to call her Baby, and I accidentally called her Bobby. And 9 years later, she's Bobby, I'm Bobby, we're each other's Bobbies. And to the unsuspecting stranger, we are 2/3 of a throuple with Bobby Flay. And I realize that that's two Food Network references in one set, and I say, not enough. Yeah. Things moved fast. I mean, we met each other's families within the first 6 months. And then we started going on trips to Mexico and Argentina to visit my family there. And that's about the time that Zoe started to learn how to speak Spanish because she wanted to be able to communicate with my family there, which is very lovely. And I remember it was like 3 months before we went to Argentina, and she started taking lessons with a tutor from Mexico. And we got to Argentina, and she's like, I think I got this. And I was like, you don't got this. Right? Because Mexico and Argentina, both Spanish, different Spanish, okay? And learning from a Mexican to speak to an Argentinian would be like learning English from me to have a conversation with a Muppet from Scotland. I left her with my grandma, and she ran into the first challenge pretty quickly, which is that certain words in Mexico mean different things in Argentina. And we had just been in Mexico, and my grandma was like, so what was your favorite thing that you ate in Mexico? And Zoe just looked at her and was like, concha. Which in Mexico is a shell-shaped pastry, but in Argentina is vagina. And she just kept digging the hole. She was just like, yeah, the only thing that would make it better is a little cream in the middle. And I was like, damn, she's getting fluent at the wrong time. Zoe was so mortified that for the rest of the trip, whenever anyone would say anything, she was just like, see. But then my uncle came over, he's like, oh, so you having a baby? And I was like, what? No. He's like, she said, see. I'm like, yeah, no, she meant it in the future tense. Don't worry about it. We're good. And then on our 1-year anniversary, we moved in together, and that's when we had our first fight. It was over the AC, classic fight. I run hot, she runs cold. She doesn't let me touch the AC because she likes to save money. So now, ahead of every summer, feels like a collective bargaining agreement where I put forward my bid for how low I can set the AC, and she just tells me what it's gonna be. And I remember ahead of that first summer, I submitted my bid for 67 degrees, and she came back with 76 degrees, okay? Yeah, 76 degrees is what I get from this frozen fascist. Like in our house, AC stands for authoritarian control. You get what I'm saying? Like most dudes, when their significant other leaves the house, they jerk off. Not me, all right? The only thing I'm cranking is that AC. I am cranking it like Soldier Boy, okay? I'm just fucking you. Who's hot? Not me anymore. Fuck, I feel like there's like a 20-year-old in here who's like, who is this boy and why is he a soldier? But yeah, man, things that first year and a half were just, they were perfect. They felt perfect. But then, that's never gotten a laugh before. But then my anxiety reared its ugly head. I had anxiety ever since I was a kid. And I always feel a little silly talking about my anxiety because it's like, ooh, what are you afraid of? My imagination. But but it is a fickle foe. You know, when I started dating Zoe, I didn't even really realize I had anxiety. I had never been to therapy. I didn't have a name for it. I just thought I worried a lot. And as somebody who grew up seeing 9/11, the '08 financial crisis, a widening wealth gap, a series of forever wars that seemed to value certain people over other people, and a rise in technology that both lifted collective consciousness but also seemed to be stripping away at our souls so we can be in service to our algorithmic overlords, I didn't think I was mentally ill. I just thought I was being logical. And... But unfortunately, that anxiety went past the logical. And you know, that first year and a half, things were great. Didn't have anything to worry about. But life goes on, the worries came back, and with that, so did the anxiety. And in the beginning, I kind of tried to hide the anxiety from Zoe, right? I didn't want her to see what I would later come to find out were these anxiety attacks, because to put it quite simply, they are not cute. But we lived together, could only hide it for so long. And I remember the first time that she sort of saw me in this state. I had just come back and she could tell something was wrong. And she was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." She could tell that I wasn't fine, and I could tell that she could tell that I wasn't fine. And I was like, I got to tell her, because I didn't want her to think that she was the reason that I was feeling this way. I didn't want her to think that I was hiding something from her. So I told her what happened earlier. See, what happened was that day, it was a hot summer day in Los Angeles. And I had horrendous swamp ass. All right, it was hot and humid. Like, they could have shot Duck Dynasty in my asshole. And I was in the grocery store and I was shopping and I had this wedgie and it was deep up in there. And I was like, I can wait till I get to the car. But then I was like, I don't think I can. So I was in the produce section and I was like, I looked around, the coast was clear. So I got in there deep and fast. But when I pulled it out, I looked up and there was somebody there that was not there pre-extraction. And they were on their phone. And it kind of looked like the camera was pointed in my direction. At least that's how I saw it. And I immediately started to spiral. I was just like, whoa, what if they were filming me? What if they put that video online? And what if it goes viral? What if I become a walking meme? I can already see the caption, "Man picks butthole by mangoes." And it was right around when I said the words "butthole by mangoes" to Zoe that I was like, oh, I think I fucked up. But then she just gave me a hug. And in this moment where I was expecting judgment, I was met with love. But unfortunately, the anxiety continued, and it just got worse, and I became less pleasant to be around. And the Daniel that Zoe had fallen in love with was disappearing. You see, at the core of this anxiety is this feeling that I am fundamentally broken, and that I am destined to fuck up. And so I started to have anxiety over not only the moments where I did fuck up, where I simply imagined fucking up, but it all felt equally real. So these moments, they just stacked on top of each other. And I just had this feeling that I just wanted to get out of my skin, and that built resentment towards myself and anger towards myself. And I remember being in the car one day, and I was worrying about something that clearly doesn't matter because I couldn't tell you what it is today, but in that moment, it fucking mattered. And I remember just being so mad at myself that I hit the steering wheel. And I know what you're thinking. This was not the Kia Forte. This was 4 years before the Kia, or as biblical scholars refer to it as, 4BK. But I hit the steering wheel, and then I come out of the moment, and then I look over, and there's Zoe in the passenger seat. But this time, no hug, which is fair. Right? Because the thing about anger is when you express it by yourself, it only affects you. But when you express it in front of another person, even if it's not directed at them, even if it has nothing to do with them, it affects them as well, and especially if they love you. And you know, this anger was new, but it was certainly familiar. You know, my dad, I never saw him hit anyone or hit anything, but he got angry when I was a kid. And I remember asking him about his dad. I was like, "Did your dad ever get angry?" And he was like, "No, not really." And then like 10 minutes later, he was like, "You know, he did punch a hole through a wall one time." And I was like, there it is. And I don't know what it is that make men think that punching inanimate objects is going to help the situation, but it doesn't, and we're stupid for doing it. And no matter how we feel, there's no excuse for it. And I don't think hitting a steering wheel is good. That said, within the context of my grandfather, that does feel like generational progress. You know, like when he punched a hole through a wall, he made work. When I hit that steering wheel, I technically made music. So, and I'd like to say that it only happened one time, but it didn't. And while I definitely didn't do it enough to make a whole album, I certainly made a shitty single. And I got to a point where I was always like, this is unacceptable. You have to go to therapy. And at first I resisted. I was like, but if I go to therapy, that means there's something wrong with me. And she's like, yeah, there is. And that's okay as long as you do something about it. So I went to therapy. And I remember the beginning was tough. Like finding that first therapist, that's always tough, right? Like the first therapist I had, I didn't think she liked me very much. I remember I asked her in session one time, I was like, do you like me? And she was like, well, and I was like, never mind. It's not helping. But then I found a therapist that I worked with for the first few years, and she was incredibly helpful. You know, she put language to these feelings, and she helped me understand. She's like, okay, so you have anxiety, but that anxiety, it's connected to fear, and fear stands for false evidence appearing real. And I was just like, whoa, like that blew my mind. I was like, fuck, are you God? And she was like, no, I'm Julie. God does not charge this much an hour. So then it was a question of figuring out where all this fear came from. So, you know, we worked at it session after session, and then it clicked and I realized that all of that fear goes back to my first love, Lucy. As in the television show, I Love Lucy. It was my favorite show when I was a kid. Like when I was 7 or 8 years old, I loved it. I think it was something about like a character trying to get into the entertainment industry and a Latino man standing in their way that I really connected with. And what I would do is I would write my own like little mini episodes and I would perform them for my parents every Sunday. And I was all the characters, you know, I'd just be like, Lucy, I'm home. Oh, Ricky, Ethel, Fred, right? It was a lot. And at the time, I was in second grade, and I was getting bullied a lot. I wonder why. And my parents wanted to switch schools. And they found a school that I could go to, but in order for me to go to that school for third grade, I had to go in for a day to make sure that I would be a good fit. And I don't know what led to this policy being instituted, but I heard this, and all I heard was, I have an audition. And I'm gonna fucking crush it. And I remember I'm standing in front of the class, I'm introducing myself, and I'm like, hi, my name is Daniel. And the teacher's like, actually, Daniel, we already have like 5 Daniels in the class. Do you have like a nickname that you can go by? And I look at her and I'm just like, oh, yeah, you can call me Oppenheimer. And she looks at me like she's looking into the eyes of a future school shooter. And with fear and trepidation, she's like, the guy who invented the atomic bomb? And I was like, no, Jess Oppenheimer, the guy who created I Love Lucy. Thinking that was better. And she's like, you like I Love Lucy? I was like, I love Lucy. And then I told her about these episodes that I write. And I was like, if you want, I could perform one for the class. And this asshole goes, yeah, sure. No! I appreciate the positive validation, I do, but save me from myself, okay? Because what followed was a 7-minute performance where I told the story of Lucy and Ricky going back to Cuba on a jet ski. And at the end, I looked up and I was expecting applause, but I was just met with a sea of third graders with blank faces. And the best way that I can describe the way that they were looking at me was that it was as if they had asked me to pull my dick out. And so I did. And they were not impressed. And looking back, I really think that was the first moment that I can remember where I felt that the world kind of made me feel that there was something inherently wrong with who I was. And I think that day I started running away from who I was in the pursuit of being who I thought I needed to be worthy of love. because I thought that love would fix me. I thought love would free me from this suffering. But here I was in love, and I still felt broken, and I was still suffering. That put my whole worldview into question. But truly, in the end, it was love that silenced those doubts and allowed me to continue to do the work. And slowly but surely, I started to get better, and Zoe and I's relationship improved. And while I still have a lifetime of work ahead of me, I know none of that would have been possible without Zoe's love, without our love that made me feel safe through it all. And there are, thousands of moments like that, thousands of moments where Zoe and I experienced a level of shared vulnerability that I never thought I would ever experience with another person. And one that is kind of top of mind is it was like we were like 10 days into a European vacation, and we had been constipated the whole time. And we had tried almost everything. And finally we were like, suppositories? You're like, yeah, suppositories. And for those that may not know what a suppository is, it's a little capsule that's shaped like a rocket that you stick up your ass that does the job that nature will not. And the reason it's shaped like a rocket is because it turns your asshole into one. Like, dude, when I finally hit that toilet and I had that first step, I shot off into space. I saw Mars. I landed back in my bathroom. Elon Musk broke into my fucking bathroom. He's taking notes. He's like, how did you do that, right? And then he offered me ketamine. I'm like, bro, get the fuck out of here. I remember we went to the pharmacist, though, and the pharmacist gave us the suppositories. And they're like, hey, listen, you got to keep this in for 10 minutes. You're going to want to go earlier? Don't go earlier. You got to keep it in for 10 minutes. Hold it together. And I was like, 10 minutes? I've done 10 days. Easy work. So we go back to the hotel room. We place him on the launch pad. We set a timer for 10 minutes. And I can see the light at the end of the very constipated tunnel. But then, I don't know what the fuck they put in these suppositories. Because by minute 3, my legs were shaking, my ass cheeks were clenching, and I looked at Zoe and she was in the same boat. By minute 4, Zoe was like, hey, Bobby, I just realized we only have one toilet. And I was like, fuck it, I'll go to the hotel lobby. By minute 5, neither of us trusted gravity anymore. So the two of us were just tummy down on the bed across from each other with a timer in between us, doing the worst plank I've ever done in my entire life. And we're just looking into each other's eyes like I am with Adam right now. Okay, Adam? Lock the fuck in, buddy. Here we are. Now, here's the thing, Adam. Around 7 minutes, I have a little thought pop up into my head. And that thought is, uh-oh, I gotta fart, okay? But here's the thing, Adam. I don't have 3 minutes to find out whether this is a fart or a shart. I got about 30 seconds to make an executive decision, so I'm going back and forth. I'm like, is this a fart or is this a shart? Is this a fart or is this a shart? Is this a fart or is this a shart? I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's a fart. You can fart. So I farted, shit my pants, okay? That's it. Don't fucking break eye contact, Adam. So there I am, Adam. That's right. Keep those eyes there. There we go. Eyes locked in with the love of my life, who is you right now. And I'm like, we're about to find out how much she really loves me. Because here's the thing, folks. Zoe knew exactly what went down by the sounds and smells in this room. And I was like, I feel like I got to address the situation. So I look at her and I'm just like, Bobby, I think I pooped my pants a little bit. And she goes, Bobby, I know the fuck you did. And yeah, that's the story of how we got engaged. Really sweet, really lovely. We actually got engaged in 2022. I wanted to propose in 2019, 3 years into the relationship, but she wanted to wait for our careers to be in a better place. And then 2020 happened, and COVID happened. And I think there's something about watching your boyfriend do that last joke on a Zoom comedy show in your living room that makes you go, I mean, if I still want to marry him, I might as well. So we got engaged, and I remember being very excited to get married, obviously, and I would tell people about it. And for the most part, people were very nice. There was this like one type of dude that would try to tell me to not get married, like try to convince me. Obviously, I paid it no mind because I knew that Zoe was the one for me, and we're destined to spend the rest of our lives together. I believe that. That's why I'm marrying her. But I would be lying if I said there wasn't that little incy part, that fear that goes, well, what if I'm wrong? And then I think about Bitcoin. Do y'all hear that? Can anybody tell me what Bitcoin is? Ooh, it just got a little louder. That is the sound of 3 men getting slightly erect at the notion of somebody wanting to hear them talk about Bitcoin. How lovely. Can anybody here tell me what Bitcoin is? Anybody? No, Adam, I'm so sorry. We're back. I'm guessing you're not a big Bitcoin guy, not a big crypto guy?
Nah.
Okay, all good. We're gonna role play a little bit. Just a fun little game. All right. Let's pretend that you are somebody who's really into Bitcoin.
Okay.
Let's just say, what would your name be?
Brian.
Brian? Okay. Not so far off from Adam, but I appreciate it. Okay, so Brian, nice to meet you. Question, could you tell me, what is Bitcoin? It's a store of value, it's digital gold.
It's a storage value digital vault.
Okay, so it's a store of value, that's so lovely. And let me ask you something. Do you spend a lot of your time sort of like investing in Bitcoin? Studying Bitcoin? A lot of your days studying the charts? In the trenches? Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, okay, cool, great. Sorry, I know you must be very tired from all that time awake. Totally. Now let me ask you another question, Brian, and this has been a lovely conversation. What is your definition of love? And this isn't a trick question, there's no wrong answer, unless you're like, pussy, then yeah, but otherwise...
The way I feel about Bitcoin.
The way you feel about Bitcoin, wow. It's a good answer, Brian. It's a good answer. Now, let me ask you something. If Bitcoin went to zero, no, it's not going to zero, but if it did, all that time that you spent studying it, investing in it, reading the articles, doing the thing, would you regret all of that?
Never.
Never?
No.
Oh, okay. Wow, you really love Bitcoin. That's good. That's good. I've done this joke 45 times, and everyone always says yes. And Brian's like, no, you don't understand. This alter ego that I am, I love Bitcoin so much, fuck your question. That's what... Your leading question on your special night? I'm gonna fuck it up right now for you. And you know what, Brian? I'm gonna leave all this in, okay? We're leaving it all in. So Brian, I don't know, maybe you're just like a little just like swept up into the cult of Bitcoin. So let's pretend you met this guy named Adam who's not into Bitcoin, okay? And he's influenced you, Brian, who's into Bitcoin. And you got a little of Adam in you.
Yeah.
Now, Brian, who has a little bit of Adam in him. If Bitcoin went to zero, I know it's not going to zero, but if it goes to zero, would you regret all that time that you spent?
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely, right? Yeah. You lose your money, your time, all that life, right? Here's the thing, Brian. Love's gonna go to zero by its very definition, right? You know, either worst case scenario, it doesn't last a lifetime and you break up, or it lasts a lifetime and it goes to zero when one of you dies. Now, the love doesn't go to zero, but that crash is fucking brutal. And yet, we still do it. We still sign up for it. Anything else, if we're like, hey, best case scenario, if you do this, it ends in one person dying and the other person having unimaginable pain and grief, you'd be like, absolutely fucking not. But with love, we're like, goo goo gaga, sign me up, swipe, swipe, swipe. Let me swipe my way to the most pain. It's because it's worth it. You know, it makes me think a lot about my grandmother in Mexico. Her name is Celia. And she got divorced from my grandfather when they were in their mid-50s. And then she was in a relationship with this guy for like 15 years. It turned out to be an emotionally abusive relationship. But then, in her 70s, she reconnected with this guy named Semi. And Semi and her knew each other since they were teenagers. And it turned out that they both had crushes on each other, but they never told each other this. But there they were in their 70s. Semi was widowed, she was single. And they reconnected, and they fell in love. And it was beautiful. I mean, here was this woman that I came to know to sort of be as this like bitter, cold, harsh woman. But now she was in love and she just radiated joy and warmth. I mean, she was smiling. I was like, whoa, I've never seen your teeth before. But then, tragically, only a few years into dating, Sammy got cancer and he passed away very quickly. And I remember being on the phone with my grandma and I remember telling her how sorry I was. And she was like, yes, it's very sad, but I just feel grateful that I was able to experience a love like this at least once in my life. And I remember feeling like that was a very clarifying moment for me. I was like, oh yes, this is what life is about. You know, finding love, learning how to love better, spending time there, not the Bitcoin, the love. I'm sorry, Brian. You're welcome, Adam. And I remember telling her, I just hope that I'm lucky enough to find a love like that at least once in my life. And then she goes, well, good luck. And she hung up on me. And the bitter lady was back, everybody. So there we were on our wedding day, and there I was, lucky enough to be experiencing a love like this at least once in my life, and it was a beautiful day filled with tons of great memories. I remember the first look. I really romanticized the first look in my head. I did. We got married by the ocean, and I remember the photographer set me up. She's like, okay, you're gonna stand right here. You're gonna look out towards the ocean. In a few minutes, Zoe's gonna come by. She's gonna put her hand on your shoulder. You're gonna turn around, see your soon-to-be wife. And I was just like, man, beautiful. I remember I'm just googly-eyed looking out towards the ocean and, I'm thinking about our life together and I start to get a little bit emotional. Then another minute goes by, I start to get a little bit more emotional. Then another minute goes by and I'm starting to tear up a little bit. Then another minute goes by and I don't know why to this day, but I started to get like a little turned on. And another minute goes by, and now I'm more emotional, more turned on. Then another minute goes by, and now I'm more emotional, more turned on. Then another minute goes by, and I am really emotional and real turned on. And then I feel her hand on my shoulder, and I get a little hard. And I just remember thinking to myself, I really hope the photographer is shooting from the hip up. And then I turn around, and it was my dad, everybody. Okay, it was I guess nobody told him we were doing the first look, so he just saw me teary-eyed looking out at the ocean. He's like, hey, I just wanted to make sure you're okay. And I'm like, yeah, this is good. I'm good. I'm just gonna hang out here. Is this rock? This is nice. On our wedding day, Zoe and I decided that we were going to give each other gifts. And the one rule is we couldn't spend any money. So Zoe surprised me during our wedding ceremony with her gift. Her gift was that she was going to translate her vows into Spanish. And it was very lovely, really sweet. She vowed to stand by me wherever we go because together we are always home. She vowed to be honest with me, even if it meant telling me that a joke wasn't funny. And then she vowed to give me a fresh concha every morning. And don't laugh, that's stupid. Don't laugh. And then we exchanged our rings and we said, see. I think after, so many years, you really do start to have a little bit of that similar mind because my gift for Zoe was that I was going to surprise her at our wedding reception by singing alongside a mariachi band that we had hired to the mariachi classic WAP. No, I'm just kidding. But that'd be fun though, just ay, algunas putas en esta casa. Right? Adam, there's some whores in this house. Yeah, you're like, yeah. Brian's like, I fucking know that song. And but no, the reason I decided that I was going to do this was that I remember it was like our first trip to Mexico. We were at dinner, and this mariachi was playing, and I remember how touched Zoe was by this undeniably beautiful music. And I thought to myself, how wonderful would it be if I could gift her this feeling on our wedding day? And so the issue with that was that, again, I'm not a good singer. But I could take singing lessons. So I did for 4 months leading up. And the first thing I had to do was I had to pick the song that I was gonna sing. And the problem with that was that even though Spanish is my first language, when I'm listening to music in Spanish, I'm not really paying attention to the words, I'm just vibing out to the song. So because of that, at the top of my list of songs that I was gonna sing to my wife of 45 minutes was a song called Por tu maldito amor, which means for your cursed love, okay? Not a love song, breakup song, deep fucking breakup song. But my dumbass just saw amor in the title. I was like, oh, love, right? And then maldito means cursed. I didn't know that. But instead of looking it up like a smart person, I was like, mal is bad, ito's the back half of chiquito, little bad love. Let's fucking go. And I remember I showed up to class the first day, and my instructor, like, she's really intense. She's like, okay, ¿qué vas a cantar? And I was like, I'm gonna sing Por tu maldito amor. And she's like, no, the fuck you're not. No, you're not. And we gotta work on your reading comprehension. We started looking at the lyrics. Yeah, I almost fucked up bad. There's a part in that song where he goes, ¿Pa qué necesito la tumba si ya me enterraste en la vida? Which means, why do I need a grave if you've already buried me in this life? And then he weeps, all right? He's just like, ¿pa qué necesito la tumba si ya me enterraste en la vida? And my dumbass, I got my AirPods in, I'm like, this is so emotional, this is the one! I ended up picking a different song called Gema, and I was on my way. But then, between the ceremony and the reception during the cocktail hour, I'm getting ready to sing, and I have this massive anxiety attack about singing. And the reason that I had this anxiety attack is because the singing lessons had not been going well. And I know they had not been going well because at various points, my instructor would say things like, wow, that was not good. And you know, if you want, you don't have to tell people that I was your instructor. And I was like, what is this teaching technique? I don't understand. I remember leaving, I was like, there's no way I sound that bad. There's no way I sound that bad. So I would record myself in the car and I would like listen back to it. And I'm not saying I expect it to sound like Javier Solis or whatever, right? Like, but like, all right, so this is what I was going for. I was hoping that I would sound like,
como piedra preciosa, como divina joya, valiosa de verdad.
but instead I would listen back and I would just hear,
Tú como piedra preciosa, como divina joya, valiosa de verdad.
like I sounded like a drunk cantor at synagogue. It was bad. But slowly but surely, the confidence would build back up. And then I had this idea. I was like, oh, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna start singing around Zoe. So when I sing at the wedding, she's just gonna be like, oh, that's what that was, like little breadcrumbs. And I remember one day we were watching TV, commercial comes on, I'm sitting next to her, and I'm just like, fly me to the moon. And she looks at me like I'm having a fucking stroke, okay? And I was like, eh? And she's like, what? And I'm just like, I mean, not bad, right? And she's like, Bobby, you know you're not like a good singer. And I'm gonna be honest, my feelings were really hurt in that moment. They were really hurt, but I tried to hide it from her because I didn't want her to like be suspicious. But she knows me so well. She's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Why are you acting like it's your dream to be a great singer? And I'm like stomping on your dreams. And in my head, I'm like, because you fucking are, because you fucking are. And then my confidence would build back up. We'd be on a walk. I'd be like, fly me to the moon. And she'd be like, you know, if you want, you can start taking singing lessons. I'm like, I fucking am! And so there I am, right? And I'm having this anxiety attack, right? You know, for what? For singing in front of my friends and my family? I mean, I've been doing stand-up since I was 18 years old. I'm 33, 15 years of stand-up. I have embarrassed myself so many times in so many different ways, okay? I have bombed in Spanish in front of 300 Mexicans, Guatemalans, and Salvadorians, okay? Straight off the rancho, okay? Just like cowboy hat, cowboy boots. They milked a cow, made some chapurrado, came to the show, and then I bombed in Spanish for 11 minutes. I bombed in Spanish so bad that I apologized in English. I was like, I am so sorry. I am... Yeah, I started doing stand-up when I was 18 years old. To be honest, I thought that it would make me a little cooler. Thought I'd find friends. But at that point, I was still running away from who I was, and I really didn't know who I was. And so because of that, the best way I can describe my stand-up comedy when I was 18 years old is I would come up on this stage, and I would just be like, I fuck bitches. And every audience would be like, no, sir, no, you do not. Fact check. But I started making friends. But a lot of these friends, they were like in their late 20s, early 30s, and they were like older brothers, and I really wanted them to love me. But they loved cocaine. So I did some quick math, little arithmetic. I was like, all right, well, if they love cocaine, plus if I could learn to love cocaine, that will equal them loving me. So I set out to love cocaine. Which, spoiler alert, very easy to love. Doesn't really put up a lot of walls. Just kind of opens the door on the first day. It's like, hey, come in here, let me suck your dick. And you're just like, oh, fuck, this is crazy. So yeah, I let cocaine suck my dick for a few years, and you know, we had some fun. We came up with some business ideas. My favorite, Uber for cats, show per, let's go, who wants to invest? But yeah, man. At that point, I was fully running away from love, running away from myself, and I think this makes sense because I think as a society, I don't think boys are taught to pursue love because to love is to be vulnerable, and to be vulnerable is to show emotions, and to show emotions historically has been considered feminine or gay, which society historically says is weak, which society says is the last thing you want to be if you want to be a real man, which of course is bullshit. But that's the lie that so many young boys and boys dressed up as men buy into, and as a result, we're not able to truly experience love. Because to truly experience love, you have to love yourself, but to love yourself, you gotta know yourself. But how the fuck are you gonna know yourself if you're trying to be anything other than yourself in the pursuit of that lie? And there I was, chasing towards that lie, running away from love, and doing stupid shit, like getting into fights. I was like, maybe I should get into a fucking fight. Me? No. I was like 21, I was a little fucking geeked up. I was like, yeah, maybe I should get into a fucking fight tonight. Like right before the first punch went, I was like, maybe we should talk this out. Maybe, how about words? We can throw a nice rebuttal. He's like, what are you, a pussy? I'm like, a pussy without a concussion. That sounds nice. I like the sound of that. Yeah, the last time I used was 10 years ago, and I thought I had done cocaine that night, but I accidentally did speed. So, okay, cool, maybe we have some professionals in the building, and don't point at him, that's crazy. I went, you have some professionals? He's like, yeah, this guy right here. So, sir, you know that I had a lot of time to think. I had a lot of... And I actually genuinely thought I was gonna die that night. Like my heart was racing, I was freaking out. And I remember just thinking, if I just go to sleep, everything's gonna be okay. Just go to sleep, everything will be fine. And I tried everything to go to sleep, but nothing was working. I got so desperate that I went to 7-Eleven to get tea because I thought tea would help. I thought chamomile would beat speed. That was... I was just like cracked out in a 7-Eleven, just like, excuse me, is this caffeinated or decaffeinated? And it's like, buddy, I don't think caffeine's the issue here. But I remember being in my bathroom. I couldn't go to sleep. The sun's coming up, that awful feeling. And I'm looking at myself in the mirror. And I just don't recognize myself anymore. And looking back, I think that was the moment that I had successfully run away from who I was. I had sacrificed all of myself, and I was standing there, and I felt empty, and I felt powerless, and I needed help. And so the next day, I went to my mom. And I remember I was trying to tell her what was going on, but I couldn't get the words out. I just felt so much shame. So I was just crying, and I was just like, I fucked up, I fucked up, I fucked up. And my mom, she just looks at me, and she grabs my hand. She's like, hey, I love you, whatever it is. We will figure it out. And I think my mom thought that I had accidentally killed somebody. And she was ready to bury the body. Okay. I finally realized what was going on. I was just like, oh, no, Mom, I'm just a drug addict. She's like, ay, okay, gracias a Dios, okay, oof. I'm gonna go put away the shovel. I'll be right back. And so I started to get the help that I needed. Then about a year later, I meet Zoe, and as evidenced by that voicemail, I'm still in need of help. 2 years later, I start going to therapy, more help. And yet after all that help and all those years, there I was, still scared. Scared for what? To sing in front of my friends and my family? But really, I think I was just scared of being that little boy in front of the class with his proverbial dick out. Right? I was scared of being the 13-year-old singing into the void. I was scared of being the 16-year-old whose voice isn't quite right. Really, I was just scared of, after all these years, still being that broken cello with the potential for so much beauty, but not quite capable of it. But then I look out and I see all my friends and family who are there, who we love and who love us. And then I see Zoe, who from the beginning saw all of me, who saw beauty, where the world saw brokenness, and who fell in love with me not in spite of those parts, but in part because of those parts, and who entrusted all of herself with me, knowing that I would see and love all that makes her her. And I think that I did. I always thought that love would heal me, that love would fix me, that love would free me from the suffering. But there is no full healing. There is no freedom from the suffering. To live is to be a little bit banged up all the time. To live is to suffer. But what love is, love is this like mysterious, undefinable, magical fuel that allows us to get through all that and to keep moving forward, knowing that the punches will continue and that the suffering will return, but doing it anyway because love makes it worth it. And all these rom-coms, my parents' story, these ideas that I had in my head, because of that, I always put romantic love up on a pedestal, and I ignored all the other love in my life. For my family, my mom, my dad, my sister, friends, strangers. Love is my dad checking in on me at the wedding, maybe at the wrong time, but checking in on me regardless. Right? It's my mom grabbing my hand and telling me that we'll do whatever it takes to fix the situation, even if that means committing a questionable felony. It's Zoe looking at me in the eyes with shit in my pants and being like, hey, I still fucking love you. It's Adam and I locking eyes. I love you, Adam. Yeah, you don't have to say it back. It's okay. And I really do believe that love is everywhere. Oftentimes it's not particularly noteworthy or dignified, but it's always there. Fathers and daughters, mothers and sons, boyfriends, girlfriends, old friends. And, when the planes hit the Twin Towers, when the planes hit the Twin Towers, as far as I know, all the phone calls from the people on board were not messages of hate or revenge. They were messages of love. And I have a sneaky suspicion if you look around, you'll find that love actually is all around. And that is a quote from the romantic comedy Love Actually, but and they get some stuff wrong, but they get that part right. So that night I sang. I sang powered by love, but I sang as that broken cello, and it may not have been pretty, and it may have been off-key, but it was beautiful. And I remember as I was singing to Zoe, it kind of felt like the world went dim, and it was just the two of us in that moment. And I remember feeling this tremendous feeling of love, this big feeling in this big moment. But I recognize that feeling, right? I recognize that feeling in the infinite small moments that we've experienced together. You know, in the way that we laughed the first time that I accidentally called her Bobby, in the way that I discovered which parts of her forearm are ticklish and which ones scratch the itch just right. And the way that the two of us can sit in a room doing nothing and it feel like everything. And I remember in that moment thinking, there's no way, though, that this love could get bigger or deeper. And yet somehow, every day, it's continued to. And just when I think it couldn't get any bigger or any deeper, 2 years after our wedding, I hear this. Baby girl's heartbeat. 173 beats per minute. The best house track I ever heard. And I remember somehow once again feeling a deeper and bigger love. And it's only continued to grow every day that gets closer to her joining us in this world. But with that bigger and deeper love also comes new fears and new anxieties. And I think about how the world is going to try to break our little girl. And how no matter what Zoe and I do, it'll probably succeed because that's part of the terms and conditions of life. But then I find solace in the fact that together, Zoe, myself, our baby girl, our friends, our family, those that we love, strangers, Adam, everyone in this room. Together, all of us, we are all in an orchestra of broken instruments living in a seemingly broken world, doing our best to make it better and get through. But together, we can make beautifully imperfect music. Barata. To the window.